So you've got a shirt on that's inspired by Spo Designs.
Yes.
And then we've got the Wandering Bee candle on as always. And then we've got a Duchess China tea set.
Yeah.
Gladstone blue this is. So this brand new.
Gladstone blue. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
isn't it?
brand new. It's sort of paying homage to like the 100 years coming up because it's a very, as far as I'm aware, it's very traditional.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, isn't it? The blue, I think, is synonymous with Stoke.
Do you?
Yeah. Don't you?
Come on, go a bit closer and I'll pour you. It's synonymous to you, is it?
Well, I mean, if you think of pottery and you think of Stoke-on-Trent, I think you think of Wedgwood's blue, Spode with the blue, obviously Duchess. You've got Burley, haven't you? With their blue.
Yeah, true.
I don't know. I just think if you saw a piece of artwork on the wall or a piece of clothing like this and you were from Stoke, I feel like it's a little bit ingrained in you. Do you know? It's like when you see tiles and you think, oh, that kind of looks like a Minton tile.
I think now you've said it, yes. And I actually think it's such a beautiful design, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so like light and cheerful.
Yeah.
I'd
definitely.
actually love it to be used more because actually when you say Stoke to me, I do immediately think red.
Interesting.
I
Why?
think football club. I think red, Stoke City football. I mean, I'm not even a Stoke City football fan. I do just think red. That's the colour that comes to mind.
That's strange, isn't it? Because I would have never thought red.
Would you not?
No, never.
See,
Which
I
is
thought
weird
everyone
with the
thinks
hair.
red.
Oh, maybe we should put this out to the public.
No, I think that's good. I think it's cool because I think that's such a.
I think we should ask people. I'd be
Yeah.
interested to see what colour comes to mind when people think of Stoke.
Yeah,
Because like if you've got a business in Stoke and you're thinking about branding,
yeah.
that's important.
What colour comes to mind when you think of Staffordshire?
Green.
Definitely green as
Yeah,
well for me. I just
massively
think green fields.
Yeah, green
straight away.
outside, green everything.
So when you think of Stoke, you think blue,
Yeah, but like that specific like pottery
like a
blue,
sort of
like a glazed blue.
a glazed blue. Yeah.
I don't really know what that means.
I
glazed
think
blue.
of like honestly, I think of like a blood red.
Really?
Yeah, like I think there's something about heart and soul and grit or something. I don't know that feels.
I like that. But are you into football then?
I like football. I've
Yeah.
never supported. I never supported Stoke or Vale growing up.
No. I mean,
yeah.
we all support Stoke, don't we? Not really. I'm not a football supporter, but we support Stoke and Port Vale when they're in a match, don't we? Like,
I would love, and I would love them both to go up the leagues. I think that would be. I think Stoke back in the Premier League would probably be the biggest thing that could happen.
yeah, it'd be better if Port Vale could go through there, wouldn't it? Because that'd just be a change of scenery.
Either one, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
But Port
other
Vale haven't done it.
people
so-
will have very strong views on it, but yeah, for me, both those clubs doing well would be wicked.
Or both in the Premier League and versus each other.
I mean, that'd be great. That would be great.
Slightly different.
And then, of course, other thing to say before we jump in and ask you a couple of questions is at Dissident, you've just had a little tour. Dissident Creative Agency, based in Stone, who produce this. Well, they record, and we partner with them for this wonderful podcast. So we'll give you a cheers to the Gladstone Blue, 100 years. And it's 100 years for Stoke-on-Trent
I know.
next year.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Are you buzzing about that?
Yeah, I am, because in recent time, I think there's been a real breakdown of the city. I think a lot of people, myself included, have even thought about what it would mean to break it back down to the 6 towns and have 6 separate councils. But now we've got a council in that I think are doing a great job. I know they've got a long way to go, but it's definitely a more positive vibe now from the council. And I think it's nice to see everybody getting behind the 100 years and celebrating the unity of the city. Whereas in the previous towns, we've had a lot of breakdown and a lot of, cities, like towns versus towns. Why is one getting this? Why is one not? Whereas now it seems to be.
Has that
pulling
changed
together.
recently?
I think so, yeah. And I think coming together next year and celebrating the 100 years of the city will also bring people together. I don't see how it can't, to be honest. It's one big thing that we're all celebrating, isn't it?
It's a big birthday party, isn't it?
Pretty
Because
much.
you're actually, pretty much everyone else I've had on the podcast so far has left and come back. So you're the
I'll never
first.
leave.
Yeah, you're the first person I've chatted to on the pod that's I'm assuming you've never.
I live
left.
in Teen at the moment, which is technically Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah. You just don't seem happy about that at all.
It's a strange place.
Yeah.
It's got small
But
village
does
syndrome.
it feel that severe to you that like you would love to be within the official boundaries of Stoke-on-Trent?
Yeah, to be honest, the problem I've got is with having horses, and I live reasonably rural. There's not really many places in Stoke that you can do that. So we want to live on the outskirts of the Peak District, but close enough that I can stay in Stoke, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know I'm not necessarily going to live there, but I would never be able to move far away from Stoke. I mean, my entire family's there, my business is there, all my friends, all the businesses that I know, the places that I know. It's, I don't know, gets in your bones.
It was Bentley you grew up in?
No, Abbey Holt.
No, Abbey Hunt.
I went
Abbey
to school
Hunton.
in Bentley. I went to Mitchell High School.
Got you. So have you felt like Stoke's changed since you, like in your life? Like how have you, how have you witnessed that?
Well, you've got a lot of people at the moment that are saying that we've got a lot of druggies and a lot of problems and a lot of crime. And I'm like, really? Do we think that's quite high now compared to when I was young? Because I grew up in Abbey Holton and Bentley, which is one of the biggest council estates in Europe. And don't get me wrong, it was a nice place to grow up. It was friendly, but there was a lot of crime. There was a lot of drugs. There was, And
what year is this?
Like the 90s.
90s, yeah.
Well, I was born in 1987.
Okay.
So the 90s, early noughties. And it was just normal to us. It never caused a problem. And then I see people now moaning about the handful of druggies and people that we've got in city centres. And I'm like, have you been to other cities recently? We've got a very, very small problem. It just seems to be the media that's blown it out of proportion. And I'm not saying it's not a problem. Don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely not saying that we don't have an issue. But it's nowhere near what it was like when I was younger, when people were openly dealing drugs and openly committing crimes. It's not like that anymore. So it's a much more positive place to live. It's a much safer place to walk around at night. And I say that as a woman. I don't ever feel particularly worried. I go out at night in Stoke and take photographs, carry my camera with me. And I always just get people speaking to me. Oh, what are you doing? Hey, up, Duck, you all right? It's not a horrible place to walk around at night. Would I do the same in Birmingham or Manchester? I don't think I would.
What's changed then? Because that, your opinion actually is I'd say actually you've got like a minority opinion there currently. It seems to me from what we see maybe online or like the general discourse around Stoke. So what's the disconnect, do you think? Because like you're painting a picture of actually it's got better on some aspects, but the general narrative is Stoke has got worse.
Is it?
That's what it feels like to me. People, or at least that's what I notice of people talking about, whether it's children in care or average wages, state of the high streets. There does seem to be a general narrative online, I would say, that is, negative towards Stoke.
Yeah, I think you've got to weigh things up. So social care, social housing, children in care are all worse.
Yeah.
But that's not just Stoke.
Yeah.
That's a lack of funding from central government, and every city's having the problem. I think Stoke's got the most children in care in the whole country. But again, I don't think that is just a specific problem to one town. I think it's something that is across the board an issue. We just happen to have the most children in care because we're a low income area. We always have been. But when you talk about online and the media and things like that, there's only like a certain demographic of people in Stoke that voice their opinions online.
Yeah.
And they're always saying that it's worse now than it was, and it's worse than it ever was, and there's no jobs and blah, 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 blah. There's probably more jobs in Stoke now than there has been since the pottery industry imploded. But they're better paid. They are... How do I explain what I mean? So when the pottery industry was booming and the tyres were being made at Michelin and places like that, do they think that we still didn't have mass unemployment? Did they think that children still didn't go without food? Did they think that You know, back then you could have a husband and a wife and 17 kids and live on one man's wage. You'd be poor, but you'd all have something on your plate. Try that now.
Yeah.
One man and one woman or whatever can't afford to both work full time and have one child at the moment. That's worse.
Mm.
But at the same time, the cost of living's gone up for everything. Back then, people were quite happy renting a 2-up, 2-down terraced house. Now, are people worse off, or is it because they've all got brand new phones, brand new, they've got to have a brand new house, got to have a car on finance? It's hard, isn't it? Because the poorest of the poor haven't got them things.
So it's hard to know.
It's hard to measure
It's hard to measure decline or change or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're saying from your perspective, actually.
I'm talking from like crime and drugs and things like that. I don't think...
You feel like it's a safer, quote unquote, better place to live than it was when you were growing up.
And then we talk about the high street declining. Of course the high street's declining. But up until the 1950s, the high street wasn't particularly a hugely popular thing. It was only because people lived so close and they couldn't drive that all the shops just ended up in one place. Once everybody learned how to drive, that's when shopping centres became a thing and malls and things like that. You know, the 60s and the 70s, and they started having out-of-town shopping complexes. Happened in America as well. They were going to kill the high street, weren't they?
Yeah.
And then we all moaned that HMV was taking the money from the record companies and they all shut down.
Yeah.
And now we're moaning that HMV's gone off the high street. But we all bought from HMV, who killed the record shop, and now we're all buying off Amazon, who killed HMV. So it's our fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the high streets are also declining because, let's be honest, would you prefer to go somewhere in your car, go in 3 shops and go home and have free parking, or go and park in Hanley on the Pottery shopping centre and pay like £1.50 an hour, walk for 25 minutes to get to the first shop, carry all your stuff around? Which would you rather do?
I'm going to go to a retail park, aren't
Correct.
I? Yeah, it's a better shopping experience if you're going to, or I'm going to buy it on Amazon.
Correct.
Basically.
I think what the biggest problem is when we've got places like Hanley Market and independent shops, not putting them on retail parks. Why are we not taking big industrial units and splitting them into multi-shop places?
Yeah.
Why are we not taking all of the stalls from somewhere like Hanley Market and putting them in a retail unit at Festival Park? If that's where all the shoppers are, put the shops there.
Move towards that, yeah.
And then make the city centre of Hanley residential or offices or something.
When did you start having like all of these opinions on Stoke and stuff? Like, has it developed over the years?
It just always felt like this.
Really?
Yeah, I think living here and being in the thick of it for my entire life. I mean, you've got to remember, I'm the first person in my whole family that's not worked on a pot bank. I'm the first person that hasn't worked down a mine. You know what I mean? My family went through everything.
Yeah.
The miners' strikes, the pottery industry declining. I had family that used to, when they started sending stuff abroad, they used to bring it home and paint them, because we were on piecework. And then I've watched how it's affected everyone in my family to lose their jobs and have to go and do things that they weren't used to doing and try new things. And it was hard. But I also watch things like how they shop and how they interact with Stoke because they're just normal working class people. And I can't even tell you the last time anyone in my family went to Hanley. And there's no malice in it. There's no reason in it. It's just that some people in my family are disabled and they can't walk that far. My nan, before she passed away, she went to Hanley once a week. She went to bingo and then they moved the bus station. Why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
So
she couldn't get there then.
You've had your family that have been in Stoke a long time, worked in the industries of Stoke, and you've seen how that's changed. What I just find fascinating, and I suppose I'm just keeping prodding, is like, I feel like a lot of people would respond to that and go, oh, this place, it's a joke, or blame, like, and I don't hear any blame in you. I don't hear like, maybe you've got a few people that you like.
I'm not naive though. I mean, I understand that it's not the best place in the world to live. I understand that. I do. But isn't it? If you're going to live in the city, let's pretend you're a city dweller and you're a city person and you think, right, I want to live in the city. I want to have the opportunities that a city will bring me.
Yeah, I'm moving to Manchester.
Yeah, but you're not. You're staying in Stoke.
Oh, okay, right.
So let's say you did move to Manchester, okay? All of a sudden, everything that you do now costs 10 times more.
Mm-hmm.
There are more people. There are less jobs. There are less opportunities. I know that there's more opportunities, but there's also more people.
Yeah, I'm competing
Yeah.
more for them.
You're going to pay more to live. You're going to pay more to drive. You're going to pay more for public transport, more for parking, more for food, more for shopping. All of these things come at a price, more for your council tax. If you've got goals, if you've got things that you want to achieve, if you want to start a business or if you want to buy a house or start a family, why wouldn't you do it in Stoke?
Yeah.
It's cheap. It's nice. It's friendly. We've got all of the things that a big city has got, but on a much smaller scale. There's a lot more green spaces, a lot more sports, leisure centres, places to walk, the canal, the train lines, things like that. A lot more free things. If you go to a city, there's not a lot of things that you can do for free.
Do you feel like one of the problems is that we often compare Stoke to other cities, and it's a difficult comparison, isn't it? Because
no, I don't think that. I don't think we compare Stoke to big cities enough.
Oh, okay.
Because if you had to choose where you were going to live, if you wanted to live in a city, would you choose Stoke or would you choose London, and why?
Yeah. And you don't. Yeah, and then maybe just think your point there is that people aren't seeing the good.
Yeah.
Inside. I think that's what I'm getting. I feel like people are often looking at Stoke and wider Staffordshire and seeing everything it doesn't have.
Yeah.
And seeing all of these little intricacies. Like the fact that Stoke-on-Trent in particular is made up of 6 towns is extremely unique in its geography. It's not a fried egg, people keep telling me.
Yeah.
It's not a big circle.
Yeah.
Manchester's a big circle. That's why there's no green space in Manchester, because you have to get out the circle to get to it. Same with London. And like, other than a few parks, you've got to get out the big circle of Greater London to get to Kent or Surrey to even see a field, really. Whereas Stoke-on-Trent's very unique in that perspective. You could be in Hanley and you can go 20 minutes and you could probably be in Fields or...
But you can go 5 minutes down the canal.
Exactly. Yeah.
In any of our towns, and you're in the countryside.
Yeah, exactly. So you can always find it. So there's those like unique aspects, but I feel like a lot of the discourse and the narrative, I think from young people, as well as I think there's older generation who've seen the area change and are grieving and upset about that. And then there are, I think, young people, which I would have classed myself in this, that feel like the place isn't giving them the opportunities or the life that they want because they're just seeing what's not there. And I think a lot of people are seeing what we've not got, rather than maybe.
And
what
I do
we
think
have.
it trickles down. So if you look at the older generation, they lived in the height of like the pottery industry before it imploded.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have said that Stoke was a particularly nice place then, because, I mean, we're talking back in the 50s now, before the Clean Air Act came in. You couldn't even breathe when you lived here.
Oh, my dad tells me that he used to go and sit on a hill and see smoke.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we've only got to look at old William Blake photographs. He was a long-term photographer. He did a lot of postcards of Stoke-on-Trent. And you've seen it, haven't you? High from smoky Stoke-on-Trent and things like that. But they thought nostalgia's a really dangerous thing, I find. We're all nostalgic, aren't we? I look at back some things from the 90s and I'm like, oh, it was brilliant. And then, Tomb Raider and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then you play it and you're like, wow, this is really crap.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Sonic
me and
the
my
Hedgehog,
mates
stuff
do
like
it.
that.
We reminisce about the glory days of
of course
nights
you
out
do.
up Hanley. And
Yeah.
but I don't fancy a night out now.
No,
So.
but I mean, let's go back to the 50s. Women couldn't have a bank account. Men worked 15 hours a day. No one could breathe. Everyone died of lung disease. We all lived in damp houses. We didn't have double glazing. Your kids were out from God knows what time till what time. You didn't know where they were. And let's not pretend that there was no crime and no predators. And, none of that, because there absolutely was. There was just no social media.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why crime is more widely reported now, is because it's all on social media. Back in the day, you had a newspaper. And if it wasn't important, it didn't go in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And then you've got all the way through the years, all this nostalgia of these older people who lost what they thought was a simpler, nicer time. But it was simpler, I'll give them that. And then that's trickled down to when the industry imploded and they became disillusioned with the world. And I think they've passed that down to the next generations. Because like when I was young and when you were young, it was a pretty poor place to grow up. It was poor. We didn't have any money. It was not a rich area. There wasn't loads of opportunities. But now there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of startup businesses in Stoke-on-Trent because office space is cheap, transport's easy, we're right off the M6, things like that. So if you are a young person now, there are loads of jobs and opportunities in Stoke-on-Trent. I think we were like the transitional period, watching my family struggle after the implode and then coming up the other side. But I've never struggled to find a job in Stoke. I think there's that many businesses here, from huge national chains right down to small independents. I don't think that's any different to any other city. I don't think there's less opportunities. I think there's more. Because let's say you wanted to start a business in Stoke and you wanted a studio or an office space or something like that. Where else in the country is it as affordable as it is here?
Yeah.
You know, if you go to Manchester and you want to rent like an attic office space, how much are you talking? Because it's out of the budget of most startup businesses, isn't it?
What's your opinion then on just the state of the area? Like, what, how is it? Because I'm picking up that you're like, actually, we all need to sort of refresh our mindset and look honestly at what we've got and be kind of appreciative of that and use that as our advantage, and also break through this noise and really challenge, is it as bad as everyone's saying it is? What's your genuine take on just the state of affairs? Like, what would you like to see change in it across Stoke and maybe also North Staffordshire as well? Like, are you happy with how it is? Do you want, how would you, if I made you the mayor, like, what would you change? Like,
I'm not happy with how it is. I think it'd be really naive to say that Stoke is like the best place in the world. I just think that there's a lot of positives and people only focus on the negatives.
Yeah.
I think we need to focus on both equally.
Yeah.
So yes, there are a lot of good things about Stoke, but there's also a lot of things that really need improving. The first one's the state of the roads.
That'd be your first.
Oh, well, I drive old cars, so let me just tell you, if you're wanging about Stoke in a Range Rover, you probably haven't noticed the fact that there's no tarmac on the roads. But then, on the positive side, the council have said that they're going to fix like 6,000 potholes this year. So for me, let's give them a chance to do that.
Yeah.
Let's see if they do it. Let's see if it works. And then we've got obviously social care, housing. The council are doing a big thing at the moment with mould in council houses and social reforms for children and things like that. So again, yes, that's an issue, but it is on the agenda to be repaired.
Yeah.
The things that I think I would repair is we've got a huge problem in Stoke at the moment where we've got no media. There's no central source of media that isn't hugely negative. We either need something to change. We need something that is not even necessarily just positive, something that's just not negative all the time. Something that somewhere that tells you what's on and who's doing what and things like that, and interesting news and stuff like that. That's one thing. And then I think the other thing that I would change is I think people really need to start taking care of their own spaces. So if you drive down a street, everyone's got like a garden or a front door or something like that, and shops and offices are still the same. You drive down a high street and all the weeds poking out the side of the building, the window frames flaking. If everybody just took care of their own little space.
Yeah, a bit more pride in.
Yeah. If you go to local villages that have won like Britain in Bloom and
it's well kept, isn't it? Because each individual person is taking pride in their area. And that I feel like that's the thread through what you're talking about. It's taking pride, reclaiming,
taking ownership of
the place that we're all living and we're all from, and really believing that we're sort of custodians of it. Because one thing I certainly noticed since I came back is obviously I had that period, grew up when I was young and then left for a period. I mean, in the other cities I've lived in, I've never ever heard anyone talk about the council. I'm not even joking. I've lived in Sheffield, Newcastle, London, spent a lot of time in Manchester. I've genuinely never heard anyone mention the council when they live there. It's maybe their councils are so good that people don't notice them. But I just think people are like cracking on with it. And I feel like there's some sort of culture here of, expecting that the council do everything.
Do you not think that that's maybe the size of the city? So like in a large city, the council just do what they're doing. But if you go down to a village and have a parish council, most people in the village know the people on the parish council, and there's usually some weird
Possibly.
politics going on.
I
So
wonder.
we're only just a step above a town, aren't we, really?
True.
We're 6 towns and we are a city, but we're not a city. We're not
No.
like London, Manchester,
No,
Birmingham,
no, no.
Liverpool. So maybe, but do you not think that could be a positive thing, that the council can get involved with the citizens of the city and learn what they want, and then
Only if the citizens also are willing to engage, though. And I think
Correct.
that's. I suppose I'm back to your point.
Yeah.
I do think we do need to develop a lot of ownership and pride, and people believe in, like, this is my place and I get to have a say. And you know, yeah. Someone said to me the other day, as a little aside, they were out litter picking in, I can't remember, either Newcastle or Hanley, and they were enjoying it. They were doing it as like a thing that they wanted to do to contribute to the area. And someone asked, like, "Oh, do you work for the council?" And they said, "No, like, I'm just volunteering off my own back to do it." And then the person who asked got really angry, like, "Oh, the council should be doing it." And
why don't you just pick your own litter up, and then no one would have to do
the
it?
person was like, "Yeah, well, I'm picking up like your litter, not your litter, but you know." So I just thought that's a really interesting interaction that I think kind of sums it up.
But I think people think that the council, thank you. I think people think that the council are like a magical pot of money. It's like, I don't know, back in the 50s that you might have been able to get someone to litter pick for 20 pence a day. I don't know. But like now, we've got minimum wages in this country. And paying someone to litter pick isn't just like, have a bit of cash in your hand for doing some litter picking. That's a full-time job for somebody. That's a whole full-time wage that the council has got to find just for someone to pick litter. But you could just not drop your litter. And then we wouldn't need that.
And drop it and litter, I think, like...
I hate littering.
Oh, it says everything, doesn't it? It says
the inside of my car tells you how much I hate littering. Litter
says everything about what you feel about where you live, I think.
Correct.
And what you maybe feel about yourself also.
Yes.
Now, what's contributed to that then, do you believe? Like, what
we've already been talking about.
Do you think it's all just that history
I
of
think,
like...
For me, there's a few things that need to be rectified before anything's going to change in this city. The first one is how people perceive the city. So if they don't like the city, they are going to drop litter, like you say, and they're going to moan online. But then in order to change that, you've got to have some way of telling them that the things are good, which comes back to what I said about the media and the positivity and, sharing news, sharing events, stories. Sharing things. Yeah. And that is only going to be done if people put on these things. So businesses sharing events, the museums putting on events, green spaces being advertised and people using them. Yeah. All of them 3 things combined, I think, will make people
So you're almost saying you've got almost creative contributions. Yeah. So whether it's businesses, spaces, restaurants, people just doing stuff. That's what I hate. Yeah, doing things. Yeah.
Not just opening a business and going, please
doing things, creating things, making things, getting, stuff, products or experiences. Then being able to tell people about all those things, and then you believe that people will have and I agree, a more positive experience of the place and develop more.
Because it's not just about how a city looks. There aren't really any beautiful cities. There are beautiful places within those cities. But if you go from the middle before you get to the outside, it's usually pretty grim in most cities, let's be honest. Yeah. We're lucky that we don't really have that because we're split into 6 towns, like you said about the fried egg situation. Yeah. We don't have that like external part of the city. We've got towns, residential homes, little shopping bits, and it's all sort of mismatch. And I don't think anywhere particularly looks awful. I think there's a few patches of dereliction that need to be tidied up and a few places where the buildings are crumbling and do need repairing.
Where are those for you? Where are your top? If you could sort of blitz and sort out, say, 3 areas, what would you go for?
Tunstall High Street, Longton High Street, to a lesser degree. And the third one would probably be Hanley City Centre. So the first thing I'd do is I would rip all the pedestrianised bit out of Hanley because I think it's too difficult for people to get to where they want to go. I think if you could pull up and have 30 minutes free parking on most of the streets in Hanley, people would nip up more often.
Yeah,
And if they could nip up and see what was there,
Yeah.
there's more chance of them
Or
coming
if there were
back.
a load of free buses or cheap buses or whatever.
Yeah,
that might
parking.
help.
I mean, I
Yeah,
don't really see why we need a parking ride in Stoke, like, you know, but yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah. What's your opinion on that, public transport? Because
I didn't pass my driving test till I was 21. So I used public transport
got
for
around.
ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about now? What would you have? Would you tram?
Tram? Well,
would
to
you?
be honest, I think one of the biggest losses in the history of Stoke-on-Trent was losing the trams. I really do.
So we had trams
Oh, yeah.
until when?
I think it was about the 40s, 50s.
Wow.
We had the Pottery's electric tram company. And it went between every single town. It
No
went
way.
up Vicky Road, up City Road, up Litchfield Street to Hanley, Tunstall, everywhere. And you could get anywhere in Stoke on a train or a tram.
Right.
Because obviously you got the loop line.
And then what happened, do you know?
No.
Just
No idea. It just closed. They just ripped them all up. But it was the age of the car, wasn't it? They were looking to the future. They thought that cars were going to be the future, and they are. They weren't wrong. But now there's too many cars and people don't like them again.
Because your thing is history, isn't it? So I see you're a historian in my mind. Like you know the area and the history of it like the back of your hands, and you post online, and you go and visit places, and you find out the history of buildings in particular. I feel like that's your particular interest.
I just like them because they're tangible.
Yeah, buildings and like things.
Buildings, things, and the stories around them.
Yeah.
Because people are interesting, but like people live in buildings and multiple people live in buildings and things happen, and it's easier to see what it looks like now.
And given what you know then about the like all of Stoke and Staffordshire history, from everything from ceramics, and you go further back than that. Like yes, I feel like you go into, the Anglo-Saxon era with
going back to the Romans. And,
What do you see as the future? Like if you sort of could paint a picture from the past to now and beyond. Yeah, how would you do that?
What do I think Stoke's going to be?
Yeah, what's going to happen?
I think Stoke's going to be the next Silicon Valley.
You actually think that?
How many tech companies do you know that have started in Stoke recently?
I don't know. Bet 365.
No, small ones.
I don't know that many.
I do.
Do you?
We're sitting in one for a start.
That's creative agency.
Same
You
sort of thing.
you actually think that will happen? I'm not being like.
If you go back and look at California, like Silicon Valley, they started to go there because the rent was cheap.
Yeah.
And land was accessible.
Yeah.
Buildings were easy.
Yeah.
Is that not where we are now with Stoke? We are in the centre of the country.
Yeah.
There isn't a single place in England that is better situated for travel than Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah.
Trains, M6. We nearly had an airport. That's one of the other losses that we had was Mere Airport. But I honestly think...
So Mere nearly had an airport?
Yeah. Check it out on my website. Mere had an aerodrome. Yeah, right up until
No
50s.
way. What, like a proper airport?
It was an aerodrome.
It was an aerodrome, okay.
So it was an airport.
Yeah.
They started doing commercial flights from it after the war.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we've even had royalty come and land here to go to the pot banks.
No way.
Yeah. It's quite an interesting one. Then it was a glider club for a long time. But I don't think the council ever quite had the foresight. And it genuinely was the council that voted against it because it's in all the Sentinel records and stuff.
To turn it into a commercial airport.
Yeah. Yeah, they were saying it wasn't worth doing.
So you believe the future is it's cheap right now. It's really well located.
It's like I keep saying.
Do you feel like that means that people will be drawn here, or the people you do?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, you've got two types of businesses, haven't you? You've got startup businesses and established businesses. Now, if you've got a startup business, the first thing that most people need is office space and customers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've got customers. We're a city, but we don't have city prices for the buildings, for the rent. Even to purchase a building or land to build your own building, there isn't really anywhere in the UK that's cheaper than Stoke-on-Trent right now. But on the other hand, if you are an experienced brand, if you are a long-term business, and a lot of people are working hybrid at the moment, but let's say that they're in Manchester and they're paying an extortionate amount of money for a building and they want to expand and they need another building and they need more staff. A lot of businesses are leaving cities, a lot of them. in droves, actually, because they can't afford the rent. I'm using Manchester specifically because Manchester's risen so quickly that it is actually outpricing a lot of the people that are there.
Yeah.
So if you're in Manchester, you can't go to Birmingham because it's the same problem. You definitely can't go to London because that problem started 20 years ago. So where'd you go?
So you see a creative, entrepreneurial
Haven't we always been?
future. Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I was leaning into that. Yeah.
That's what I think. I think we, as a city, we've got so many artists and creators and creative people here already that if you are thinking about somewhere creative to go, why would you not come here and have a lovely office on the canal or, build an entire building like Bet365 has for less than you could have done anywhere else in the country?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like re-tapping into that story is powerful. You not reincarnating Wedgwood and these other pioneers, but just drawing inspiration from them. Like I knew nothing about Wedgwood growing up. Like I must have heard of Wedgwood, but I didn't know he was such a pioneering force. And also
Anspode.
Yeah, and
All of them.
Minton,
yeah.
all like, yeah.
They weren't just potters. This is the thing. People think, oh, they made pots. No, they didn't.
What's the most is there a particular, I don't know, interesting story about either of those that you think is not well known?
Not really. I mean, I think today we all know and appreciate the history of these people. I think, but when you look at pottery and we look at how things were made and the entrepreneurial, I don't think people realise that like Josiah Wedgwood was not a potter. He was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He was.
And like a scientist.
Like I was going to say, you think about making a cup. And like now you make a cup and you put it in a kiln and you glaze it and whatnot. And it's not, I'm not going to say it's not difficult, but if you go back like 200-300 years, you would need an entire factory and a workforce to make that cup. And the science involved, even from getting the clay out of the ground and the texture and the water density and stuff. Bear in mind, they got no like scientific instruments. There was no digital anything that you could use. This was something that they all just knew and passed the knowledge on and learned. And
yeah, they were proper like tinkerers and engineers.
Yeah, and he was the guy that like figured out what to put in to create, because he went to China and wanted transporting China from China. It was translucent. It was that delicate. And obviously, a lot of the times it didn't make the journey. So he wanted to make something that everyday people could use bone china. And we now know that he made bone china. But like, what did he do to make that? Like, where'd you even start?
Yeah.
How many things did he put in the clay?
And how many things did he break and fail at and experiment? And Wedgwood isn't the only one.
No, I mean, look at Thomas Wedgwood. He invented photography.
What?
Photography was invented in Stoke-on-Trent.
What do you mean?
You don't know that?
No.
So Thomas Wedgwood.
Yeah.
Younger than Josiah Wedgwood.
Yeah. His son or brother or?
No, he's like his nephew or something.
Right.
So he was a tinkerer. Again, the whole family tinkered with all weird stuff. Some of them were engineers. Some of them, painted. Even the women were really into. But I think it comes from the fact that they were quite a wealthy family and they could do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Thomas Wedgwood basically wanted to create a permanent image, but he could never get it to fix. So when you take a photograph in a darkroom, so he created like a pinhole that would, so basically if you get a piece of paper, a piece of photo paper, it's got a chemical on the top. If you put something on the top of it and turn the light on and then turn the light off and move the thing, it will leave a mark of where it's been. And then as soon as you turn the light on, the whole page goes black. What he figured that out. He figured out the chemical to put on to create an image so you can put leaves on and things like that. And then what he did is he would do like a silhouette of his head. So he'd open the window, it would silhouette. And then he never figured out how to fix it. So then you dip it in another chemical and it creates a permanent image. I'm trying to explain it simply. I'm trying to not get into it too technically. Yeah. It was actually a guy in France that finished it, who it turns out did correspond with Wedgwood. And Thomas Wedgwood actually corresponded with other people. There's letters in the Wedgwood collection talking about, and
Wow.
they're dated, talking about his experiments with photography, and they are earlier than anyone else ever did.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because
But he died really young, which is why he never did it.
I feel like there are so many entrepreneurial stories in this area that aren't just ceramics. And I do sometimes think ceramics takes a bit too much of the limelight. Obviously, we know Reginald Mitchell and the Spitfire, but I've never heard that story.
Yeah, I have written about it.
I never knew that.
But I never made a video about it.
I never knew that this industrialist or someone from this great industrialist family was also played a part in pioneering photography.
Yeah, like we wouldn't be sitting here with any of these cameras if he hadn't
done his
fiddled
tinkering
about with what he was doing. Yeah.
Are there other little stuff? Like, what else have we got then? What else is there?
And we talk about the monks in the
what?
abbeys. Monks.
What were they doing?
The Cistercian monks and places like that. So Halton Abbey, where I grew up, Abbey Halton.
Yeah.
The Abbey at Halton.
Okay, that starts to make a bit more sense. Yeah.
Okay, so there is actually still an abbey there. The ruins are there.
Okay.
It was covered up by a farm and then covered up by a school. And then they did like a huge excavation in the 70s. But they used to make tiles. They made encaustic tiles, which is basically where you cut little shapes out, make coloured tiles, and then they dry. And the whole of the floor, they found them. They're in the Potteries Museum. If you want to go up and have a look at what they found at Halton Abbey. I mean, that was what, the 1400s?
Wow. So they were making tiles in the 1400s here.
Yeah.
Monks were.
Yeah, yeah.
What kind of monks are we talking? Well, I think
just
when
monks.
I think monk, I just think Buddhist monk. But
no, just like a normal monk, just like how you would imagine a monk.
Okay,
So,
like a priest.
Yeah, pretty much. But monks that lived in abbeys weren't all priests.
Okay,
they just imagine a nun.
Yes,
but a man.
A nun, but
that
a man making tiles in Abbey Halton.
But they also brewed beer. They had fishing ponds. They had thousands of sheep for wool. Wow,
history's important, isn't it? I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, but it really is, because I feel like it helps to connect. It is inspiring in some way, and it makes you feel, especially if you've got like a lineage here in some way, or even if not, even if you're just in the area and like you see these visuals around you, it does. If certainly in me, it does like evoke something of like, oh, you know, I can do that too, or we could do that.
It's so important. I think in order to know where you're going, you should know where you've come from. You can't learn from things if you don't know them. And I also think it gives you that sense of ownership again.
Yeah, it gives you the pride. It definitely gives you some sort of pride. Honestly, on a very basic level, it gives you something to talk about.
Yeah.
Like if you meet someone, you can say, oh, you know, did you know this about the place I'm from? Or, you know, this place I grew up was this thing. Yeah. Like it gives you some sort of...
I've never really known an area that is so interested in its own history. I mean, you go to like London and Birmingham, places like that, and yes, the big famous places are interesting. And you go to London and you get guides that take tourists around. But the people that live there don't seem to have the same weird civic pride that we have in Stoke over our history.
I think it all comes from pride. I think all the negativity and all the, you know, some of the hate, I think it all comes from love. Like there's so much love and pride here that I feel like often it's unexpressed, and maybe, you know, I think people need to get making again. I think people need to get creative again, because definitely. I think it's one, it might lead to some new businesses or whatever, but also it's healing. And I feel like there's a lot of healing and just this process that we all need to go through to sort of refine this new chapter. And I think creativity is a great outlet to do that. I think people actually, need to get tinkering and get playing. And because I think that will help us rewrite this.
And people don't need to make things to sell.
No, that's exactly.
A big thing that we have in this like weird capitalist society that we live in at the moment.
Just play.
Just go home and pick up a pen
100%.
and a piece of paper and just draw something. Is it crap? Probably.
Yeah, just sign on.
Does it matter? Throw it in the bin.
Go to Wedgwood or Valentine's Clay and throw a pot just for the fun of it. Just I completely
get back to your roots.
I completely agree. Get into crafts. There's all sorts
There's so many crafts on in the city, especially for kids. Like
100%.
The holidays are coming up, and I've seen so many events on where you can like just get your hands in the clay and draw
It's actually
things
incredible that. I feel like, that's been a big thing for me. I just really seeing the effort that people put into providing the arts for people is pretty phenomenal.
And a lot of them are free.
On a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
It's not like people are doing it on, like I saw, put it on the Knot the other day, but, Spode Museum have got these summer workshops where you can do all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah.
Apparently at Wedgwood, there's just this whole area that you just can go to for free and just play with things. I'm sure there is at many other places. So it's...
And I love that about Stoke. That is one of the things that you won't find in big cities. There's not a lot to do for free. But I don't know if it's because we're a creative area and people want to share creativity, or if it's because it's a low income area and people want to get them in.
I think it's both.
I do.
Personally. I think
both. It's really important. I mean, if you've got kids or if you're lonely or you have low income and you can't afford to go to the theatre every night or something, there's something for you to do nearly every single day in Stoke.
Agreed. And what would you like, say someone's got, is feeling a bit downbeat about Stoke and even Staffordshire and just feeling, there's not much to do around here. Like, just feel, it's a bit of a dump. Like, what would you say to them? Like, what would you tell them to do? Where would you tell them to go?
Outside. Get off the internet. Walk round. Go everywhere. Pick something that you're interested in. Are you interested in walking? Then go for a walk. Do you like cycling? Cycle. Do you like birds? Go down to Westport Lake. Pick something that you're interested in and then go
and do it.
Because you'll soon find that when you get off the internet and into the real world of Stoke-on-Trent, it's nowhere near as bad as people think.
Love that, and agreed. There's a online reality and an offline reality which are very different, and sometimes.
And I do think, sorry to interrupt you, but I genuinely think that's the difference between me and my opinion and a lot of other people's opinions, because they're watching what I write and what I video on the internet. I'm there. I'm interacting with people. I'm being taken around by the owners of buildings and showing the nooks and crannies, and I'm doing the research, and I'm there all day in the lovely sunshine or the rain, and I'm listening to the birds sing, and I'm learning the stories of the stones and all that sort of stuff. And then you also forget that when I'm filming at these places, I need to eat. I need to go to the toilet. I need to go and buy a pencil or something like that. So I'm going into these local shops and I interact with everything around these areas that I'm going to video and talking about. So I am living it. I am walking through the green spaces, and I do that every single day. And I love that. And a lot of people don't.
No,
they just live online. And if you don't want the negativity, go and explore.
Yeah, love it. And what are your top 3 historical sites, buildings, places to visit?
Got to say Middleport Pottery. Got to. It'd be absolutely ridiculous not to say
you like
Middleport
it there.
Pottery. It's one of my favourite places in the city. And I think it's because we almost lost it, didn't we? And it's been turned into such an incredible place. And it's still a factory. They're still making pottery and you can still go there and buy it. And they're still making pottery in a really unique way. But also, again, there's loads of events on. So, you can go and play with clay. You can go and colour in. If you can go to the cafe and have something to eat, they have exhibitions on. There's businesses down there. You've got like the little street across the road that's got little businesses in, the street. So that's the first one.
So Middleport Pottery.
How far are we talking?
I think Staffordshire.
Stafford Castle.
Stafford Castle.
Yeah, I was there a couple of days. What? I was there a couple of days filming because I'm working with Historic Stafford to make like a little mini video about it. Wow, it's got to be one of the most important castles in the UK.
Wow.
It's so unique because the keep on the top is relatively modern, but all of the earthworks are there, and it's not open all week. The castle's open to the public. You can go and walk your dog, and there's really good trails all the way around with signs that tell you exactly what was there and what happened all the way through. But we nearly lost it. It was nearly demolished in the 70s. There was one of the hugest archaeological excavations. There's a really good documentary about it on YouTube if anybody wants to watch it. but it's completely free. Like you can go, take the kids, take a picnic, go sit on the grass, go explore the keep, go in the visitors centre, buy a lolly. You know, it's lovely. You can go up and walk the dog. They have really awesome things on there. They have like a theatre, the Gatehouse Theatre sometimes put things on there. They have fireworks and events. It's just awesome. But then like you can go on a weekday morning, it's really quiet and you could just sit and draw or take your laptop and work, and it's, you know, being next to them places and it's quiet, and well, it's not dead quiet because it's near the M6, but it's reasonably quiet.
Yeah.
I think it's just lucky that we've got these sort of
Special.
spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
Third
second
place?
one. Third. There's so many, aren't there?
To you, yeah.
It's really hard to decide. See, I would say all the pottery factories that we've still got, but I'm trying to think of something different. Leek Town Centre.
Just as a day out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Leek.
Really?
Yeah. I love Leek. Leek should be a blueprint for what we want our towns to be like.
And you think that's got like a historic significance as well, or you just
pretty
see it
much
as
just old, isn't it? It's a really good mixture of old and new. It's got thriving shops, thriving high street, loads of foodie places, loads of bars and independent places you can go for a drink, mixed with old museums, library, and then 2 minutes outside of Leek, you've got the Peak District.
Yeah. And you'd like other towns to sort of
embrace that.
Embrace. Yeah. Leek's got that.
The towns need to
collective
be the
feel.
towns, and the city needs to be the city, but the towns need to look after, need to be more towny, if you know what I mean.
Nice. And then final few questions. Favorite place to get a coffee?
Honestly, if they serve iced coffee at the moment, anywhere.
No,
I am absolutely obsessed with iced coffee.
Where would you choose to go though? Across Staffordshire.
Right, you're going to hate me for this.
I'm not.
You are.
I won't.
You will. Starbucks.
No way.
Do you want me to tell you why?
No, I don't even want to know.
No, you need to know. You need to know the answer because I told you wouldn't like me.
I don't even want to
Hang
know.
on, only one time a year.
Yeah.
Pumpkin spice latte.
All right, that's fair enough. Independent.
I'd probably say Bear.
Bear. People love Bear, honestly.
I know,
so
but it's
funny.
really nice coffee.
The food,
like,
the coffee's great, yeah.
I went for a full English breakfast and like, I'm happy with a greasy fry up, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was absolutely
What about
epic.
food then? Where would you go for food?
Food?
Where's your favourite place?
There's a fisheries in Cheadle. And I can't even remember what it's called. But if you live in Cheadle, everybody will know what I'm on about. It's a fisheries and they do full English breakfast, and that's pretty much all they sell is breakfast food. Yeah, it's like a log cabin by the lake.
Oh, wow.
And they only serve breakfast food.
Nice. So it's like a breakfast place, but
when is this a fisheries?
It's
but
but in
breakfast.
a fisheries. Yeah. Wow, that's
Blake
your
Hall.
top spot.
Blake Hall.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow, that absolutely escaped me.
that's
Blake
your
Hall
top
fisheries.
spot.
Yeah.
Love it. And then finally, just favourite thing. I mean, you might have already said it. What's your favourite thing to do around here?
Just explore. Just
Yeah.
be outside. I just think there's never nothing to do. Yeah, you can walk around and find a new shop, find something interesting, find a green space. There's so many events on. Just be here, I think.
Yeah, love it. It's been a pleasure, honestly. You're such a breath of fresh air, I think, here. Like you've got, I don't think you've got a controversial opinion at all. I think you've got a really refreshing take on someone that gets out there, engages with the place, and your voice is so important. It really is. Like I know you write a lot and you post a lot and you do your videos. I think even already you're giving people a new insight into the area. So yeah, please keep doing it.
Oh, I definitely will.
Been a pleasure.
Thank
Thank you.